Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the goddamn internet. And today we're gonna be talking a little bit about our favorite reptilian looking man. And I'm not talking about Mark Zuckerberg. I'm speaking about Stephen Greer, the best grifter, right? So I am a fan of Stephen Greer. I'd love to meet him. Yeah, his monetization practices, selling CE5, a bit odd, but overall, I'm interested by the guy, and he has a lot of uploaded content and archived interviews and so many things you can access online, right? At that point, it was free. I'm not sure if it still exists, but I own the CE5 app. And yeah, you gotta buy access, but I got it, so I don't know. I've never tried it. I don't know why I bought it, but some interesting sounds on there. But we're gonna be looking into some new things he's been up to, and he claims the bomber with the Tesla Cybertruck at the Trump Tower was one of his whistleblowers. So I'm really interested to see how and where this leads, and I'd love to know your thoughts. But before we start the video today, subscribe, notifications on, do not miss a future upload, because we'll be covering so many interesting shit this year. With Trump taking office, etc. There's so many new things coming out. And I think 2025 is going to be a great year for disclosure of all kinds of things. And
the Las Vegas suicide bomber. So he wrote this manifesto that they're trying to suppress, like they do with everything else. But it sort of ebbs into this world. Is there any connection just between what is going to happen next week and what we saw in Las Vegas on New Year's Day?
Correct, there is. And it again, that was sort of a psychological warfare operation by someone in special forces, giving a heads up on this. It's not a coincidence it happened at the Trump building and that it was in a Cybertruck. He refers to gravitic propulsion systems. And that's what's going to be coming out, because we have mastered gravity control for decades. And this is why many of the crap people see that they think is alien.
And he wrote about that in the manifesto. Just a final question.
And so Stephen Greer is... It's seemingly his story is coming together quite a bit. It's seemingly giving him a lot of credibility. What do you guys think? I mean, the words Stephen Greer has spoken has morphed into a fucking explosion outside one of Trump's hotels. What the fuck is even going on, guys? Simulation confirmed, right? And yeah, Stephen seems very serious, very sincere, but he also looks very weird, like a pigeon of some kind, right? I don't know, but let me know what you guys think about all this. And do you think this is credible? It's seemingly coming together, right, in a weird way.
I just go back to the beginning for a second, and we can walk our way through, because the first thing you said, well, just kind of blew my mind. You know, a rogue organization, military in nature, probably with corporate entities, is putting these things in the air to create distrust, to create a little bit of panic for some reason we don't know. And you personally talked to you'd call him a whistleblower, right? Who within 30 days, if this is a movie, because it feels like a science fiction movie, obviously it's real.
Yeah, it does.
But that would seem like that gentleman's life he should be very careful. And also, within 30 days, this will be in a congressional hearing, or just go to the media?
God, no. Let me tell you how this is going to happen.
See videos or people?
Yes. Yeah. He's releasing. Now, remember, he's been operational about 15 months ago. He took me in his helicopter over these classified sites and exactly over the opening of one of the underground bases. I have that footage. We have it. I provided it to the Senate Intelligence Committee pretty quickly. About 3 weeks later, I was almost killed in a terrible accident and have since recovered. But no, this is deadly serious stuff. And yeah, and of course he and his whole family are at tremendous risk. They know the risk, but these are big boys. I mean, they're very way up there with special operations. They've all been either Green Beret, Delta Force, those guys. And so, you know, these are not just your corporate shills, right? Dancing around in penny loafers and three-piece suits. So, so they know what they're doing. I've been asked to sort of put out to the public and to the incoming administration the details of this. So there's a heads up, as well as the existing administration and Congress. Yeah, because right now everyone's going to be caught unawares, and this spate of drone and other strange sightings, it really is to induce fear. Because one of the plans, if you remember, I don't know if you guys remember Wernher von Braun. He invented the rocket for Adolf Hitler. Mm-hmm. Okay, so his spokeswoman for the last 5 years of his life, he was dying of liver cancer, is on our team, Carol Rosin. And she was the first woman executive in the aerospace industry. And back in 1974, Wernher von Braun said to her, what we're going to do, we're going to hoax an alien threat to consolidate sort of a totalitarian power around the world, because it'll be so frightening to people. They will give up their freedoms, and they will, et cetera, and so on. Sort of like the overreaction, but on a much larger scale, what happened with COVID and 9/11 and the Gulf of Tonkin and the Vietnam War. So that kind of operation has been going on for a very long time. This is the granddaddy of them. This is the one that people have feared.
Is this Bluebeam, or is that something else?
I do not have that code name. People talk about Project Bluebeam. I think that's just a name attached to this.
So the Superfly podcast clips, one of the people in Superfly is obviously the bad grown-ups. What the fuck's Adam Sandler crew, right? One of those guys, and that world actually merged with Stephen Greer world, and it's pretty interesting to see that happen, right? Simulation once again, small world or something, I don't know, but yeah. So we've used clips of this specific podcast in the past, and yeah, just putting some parts of this really brings perspective to the Cybertruck Bomber as well.
So there's a group of guys who I've known for about 18, 19 months who are senior intel and aerospace operatives out of some desert locations. I'm not going to mention where they are. I've been to them, where most of the R&D testing and operations dealing with so-called UFOs, UAPs occur. Now, this guy, the main guy, has 6 other black sites, as they're called, operational sites that are very secretive, and are these particular ones are ones that are rogue and been running illegally for a long time. He is coming forward in the next 30 days or so, maybe less, with the evidence and unmasking himself and some of his operators, special forces guys, about what's going on at these sites, and with evidence. In other words, he's been operational when they have targeted and downed extraterrestrial vehicles. He's been present when they've tested man-made UFOs, which are mostly what people see, that are essentially anti-gravity craft. He's been present when there are a number of illegal operations that have occurred, including the incidental hitting and downing of civilian private planes that go up over this test area after a temporary flight restriction has gone up. So there are innocent people who have been murdered, and that's completely, there's no evidence that they were hit. So these are serious guys. The main guy I've been dealing with, I know some of the others, has been in those operations for 29 years, since the 1995 period, but he was very young. At that time, he didn't know he was involved in an illegal and unsanctioned operation. He does now, and they're fed up with it, and they want to come forward. Now, in advance of that, because what he's going to bring forward would be, I understand if he can get this done in the next 3 weeks or so, would be the videos, the evidence, the proof, not only of the NHI, as they call them, non-human intelligence craft and bodies and beings, but of the man-made ones, and also of some operations that involve the transport of humans in experimental operations from distressed areas around the world.
What we have been seeing with drones, he puts that in quotes, he says drones, is the operational use of gravitic propulsion systems powered aircraft by most recently China and the East Coast, but throughout history, the US. Only we in China have this capability. Our OPCEN, that's Operations Center, our OPCEN location for this activity is in the box below. China has been launching them from the Atlantic from submarines for years, but this activity recently has picked up. As of now, it is just a show of force, and they are using it similar to how they used the balloon for SIGINT and ISR, which are also part of the integrated comm system. There are dozens of those balloons in the air at any given time. The so what is because of the speed and stealth of these unmanned aircraft. They are the most dangerous threat to national security that has ever existed. They basically have an unlimited payload capacity and can park it over the White House if they wanted. It's checkmate. Then he says, for vetting, my LinkedIn is Matt Berg or Matthew Livelsberger, an active duty 18 Zulu out of 110, that's 1st Battalion 10th Special Forces Group. My profile is public. I have an active TSSCI with UAP, USAP access.
What is USAP? Do you know what that is?
I don't know what that is. But I checked his credentials on LinkedIn. So that was the first thing I did. I went to his LinkedIn page. First thing I noticed was all of his bona fides were in place. He has all the UAS training from USASOC and everything else. And so I said, okay, at least the guy knows what he's talking about with drones. That was a very rough dig into the guy. But my issue was I couldn't validate or verify any of this information. And I told him that.
Okay, so the podcast I'm about to show you just came out yesterday, okay? So this is such up-to-date information. Guys, stay till the end to see all the best content, okay? Subscribe, notifications on. This is what we're all about. All this interesting shit, right? So stand by.
We're always involved in PSYOPs all the time. And when I say PSYOPs, there's a part of the U.S. Army that's special operations, that's PSYOPs. And when we say PSYOPs here, we won't be referring to like this is the U.S. Army. We're talking about just general psychological operations here. But if you're seeing large-scale things happen, the first thing you want to look at is what's the timing of this event and what's the context of what's going on. And then right away, what is the information that's being suppressed and what's being forced out into the public? Like these passports that happened and the ID card that was found in this guy who burned in a Tesla. Like somehow this thing mysteriously
You're talking
survived.
about Matt Liversberger, who his Cybertruck exploded in front of the Trump Tower.
Yeah. So like what is information suppression and availability and what's the timing of what's going on? Like is there something else happening? So like is a political candidate about to transfer power or is something going on somewhere else that this could be some kind of distraction for? So we just go back to the like if you learn magic and you get a magic kit when you're a kid and they teach you like, well, shake your hand over here. Let me just do this thing. It's very basic. I'm just going to do a big thing over here to draw people's attention away. So we tend to think like there's some highly advanced technology going on to harness the power of a PSYOP, but it's usually pretty simple.
So for you, Chase, the average person sees the drones. Oh, it's the drones going on. The average person sees, with the Cybertruck and the whole ID that you're talking about, and then Sean Ryan and his crew talking about that email. When the average person sees it, they look at it at face value. Here's what happened.
Yeah.
How do you view it when you see it?
The first thing I'm looking at is what's the incentive here? Is there somebody that's going to gain from this being public or this being exposed to the public? And if you just look at the last few years, anything that we want to normalize to the public, we start out small. So we start out with these Freedom of Information Act releases like UAPs, drones, UFOs, all this stuff. And then these whistleblowers will come forward and start going on podcasts and they've been on Joe Rogan. They've been all over the place. So it's starting like this massive amount of information flux.
We had a couple of those. We had one of the guys on as well. If you're talking about the UFO whistleblowers.
Yeah.
Interesting business model. Keep going.
And who was the guy that you just had on? I watched it on the plane on the way over here. Dr. What was his name?
Stephen Greer?
Stephen Greer.
Okay.
Most believable guy I've ever seen from a body language perspective. Like he is very believable. There's some guys that I think are less credible. But if you just look at this release of information, and when I see the drones as a behavioral expert, I'm seeing this is a logical expansion of that narrative. This is just the next logical step in a normalization process. So we're normalizing these drones and we're normalizing the aerial phenomenon, and then all of this stuff happening, we don't know what the end goal is. So if you're looking at a PSYOP, the end goal of all psyops is to modify or shape behavior of a crowd of people, a group of people.
Remember, Ben Rich told a member of my team before he died, and Ben Rich was the head of the famous Lockheed Skunk Works. He said, anything you can imagine, we've already done it to Lockheed Skunk Works. He said, not at Area 51. The real action is to Lockheed Skunk Works. It's in underground facilities. And he says, anything you've seen portrayed on Star Trek, we can do it, and we've done it. So now this.
Well, wait a minute. You can beam people? Because that seems like the coolest thing. Beam me down to a planet.
They do. Yeah, they do have technologies for what's called teleportation. Of course, in physics, if you look it up, it's happened with particles through what's called entanglement.
Dr. Greer, I'm interested to see what's really going on out there. We've got 10 days before the inauguration.
As soon as this drops and we get this from this team, we'll send it over to you.
All right. Dr. Stephen Greer, have a great weekend. Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it as always.